Producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes and water tank. We are the only water storage tank with a level indicator where Duraplus goes, water always flows. This afternoon, West Africa Examination Council summons cheating candidates for accountability as investigations deepening into the over 20,000 mass cheating and related malpractices in the 2023 BCE.
Where we find that indeed there is some truth in whatever the examiners have reported, we give a hearing to the candidates. So the candidates will be invited to come to the office and then they would answer questions on whatever we discovered in their scripts.
We have more as WAEC works to deal with the cheating canker. Also this afternoon, President Akufo-Addo nominates 3 judges to replace retired Supreme Court justices, making it 15 appointments in the last 7 years.
I'm therefore seeking the approval of Parliament for the appointment of the nominees as Justice of the Supreme Court. I am fully satisfied that each of these persons is duly qualified and eminently fit to discharge the functions of a Justice of the Supreme Court.
Also confusion over whether or not Parliament should hold the post-budget workshop in a hotel or the premises of the House to save costs.
The savings that we will be making by organizing the workshop here would help to support many things.
Otherwise, then we should say that we should not take salaries at all as members of Parliament, and we use all of that for community service.
And as jostling for the running mate to NPP flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia intensifies, an insider has a caution for the perceived frontrunners.
All the running mates that we've had, from Edubuare to Kufuor to Nanado, they've never been the obvious choice. That is a fact. I don't know why people even want to be the obvious choice. The more obvious you are, the less likely you're going to.
However, the director of research at the presidency wants Dr. Bawumia to look beyond the Ashanti region in settling on his running mate.
We can decide to have a running mate from Greater Accra. When you mention Greater Accra, you don't just mention Greater Accra because anybody from Greater Accra. But whether we like it or not, Greater Accra is the biggest region in Ghana in terms of voter population.
We have sports.
Black Stars deputy captain Thomas Partey is at risk of missing next year's AFCON due to injury.
And one person arrested in connection with the illegal felling of a 300-year-old historic tree planted by the late Komfo Anokye, and later a prenuptial agreement signed under conditions not favorable to either party will be inadmissible in court in case of a divorce.
Because in one case, the gentleman said that, yes, I signed the agreement giving out this property to my wife under duress in the night, in the midnight. Such agreements may suffer a declaration of invalidity.
That's and more in this afternoon's edition of the Midday News. You want to stay? I am Emefa Apawu, and this is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Many thanks for choosing us. Let's start off from the West Africa Examination Council. We're told they're preparing to call candidates implicated in the 2023 Basic Education Certificate Examination BECE to answer for their conduct. The scripts of more than 22,000 candidates are under investigation for mass cheating. According to the Director of Public Affairs at WAEC, John Kapi, serious infractions could lead to the banning of candidates for some years. However, in cases where candidates cannot commit candidates commit minor offences, they could undertake the examination again next year. We'll hear from him.
The withholding of subject results, it moved from 38 school candidates in 2022 to now 108 school candidates. Now we have 108 school candidates and just 4 private schools. So it went up by 142 school candidates in 2023.
So tell us about the gender gap that has been closed, Kofi. What have you found?
Well, I'm sure you love this news. We've actually closed the gender gap between males and females writing or sitting for BEC. We've been able to move it from that 50.15% male to 49.85% female in 2022 to now 50.01% female and 49.99% male in 2023.
That's good news. Thank you very much, Kofi, for breaking it down for us. Let me bring in Mr. John Kapi, Director of Public Affairs at WAEC. Thank you so much for your time here on the Midday News. Quite the figures there. Over 22,000 candidates investigated for mass cheating. Really, what could have gone wrong? What exactly happened?
So for these people
Hello, Mr. Kapi. We'll try to rectify that anomaly there. Mr. Kapi will join us shortly. We know that they are currently investigating that mass cheating incident. Well, the subject results of 312 candidates and 3 private candidates have been cancelled as we speak for bringing in foreign materials such as prepared notes, textbooks, and printed materials into the examination hall or colluding with other candidates. Well, also the entire results of 41 schools candidates and 1 private candidate have been cancelled. Well, he's been giving us more details in this earlier interview, though.
The subject officers are looking at the reports of the examiners. They are also taking a look at the scripts, comparing what they find the scripts with the reports that they've received. And so when they are able to do that, there are some that may not necessarily be that which should be withheld. And so for those ones, we release them. But where we find that indeed there is some truth in whatever the examiners have reported, we give a hearing to the candidates. So the candidates will be invited to come to the office, and then they would answer questions on whatever we discovered in their scripts.
And how close are you to doing this? Is there a timeline to this?
We were looking at a couple of weeks, but remember that we are also marking the work, and the same, officers who are working on these assignments. And so as and when there's a little space to go and work a bit of it, and then so to be able to give timelines, we're looking at a couple of weeks, but we may go beyond that.
Also, with those whose scripts have already been cancelled, what are the processes or the punishment for them?
Well, there are some of the infractions that we may be barred for a number of years, but we have cancelled, and next year they can register and write again.
The council has been trying so hard over the years to ensure that cheating in this external exam is very, very minimized, but it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. What do you suppose must really be the problem?
A number of problems. For now, we are also investigating a number of them, but one, I think inadequate teaching time, contact hours between teachers and candidates. And so at the end of the day, teachers probably feel they've not done enough, and so they have to go a step further to go and join them in the examination hall.
We can now hear from Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies, Dr. Peter Anti. He's unhappy about the recurring rate of cheating. However, he's happy WAEC is taking steps to crack the whip.
We keep talking about examination malpractice, and this year we have had series of interaction with WAEC, and they have agreed that the examination malpractice that happens during the examination is what is now coming up falsely, because they have tried to deal with the issue of pre-examination malpractice, that is the leakage of questions. And of course, in Ghana, we have not had serious issues with post-examination malpractice, that is examiners tampering with scripts. So the focus now is more on during the exams malpractice, and the various mechanisms that have been put in place to deal with that particular situation is what he's talking about, like the serialization and the randomization that he's talking about, which is one of the ways to prevent in-house exams malpractice. But it seems that we need to tighten our belts in terms of that area.
Well, his colleague, Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, shares similar concerns.
I see a decline in the number of students whose entire subject results were cancelled from 73 to 41. And I also see another decline in the number of students who had some of their subject results cancelled from 416 to 312. That is great. When we hear the conclusion from the huge number of students whose results are being scrutinized for cheating, the 22,000, it will give us a definitive outcome.
That's Kofi Asare. He's Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch there. Now, President Akufo-Addo has nominated 3 new persons to go on to the Supreme Court following the retirement of some judges recently. The 3, Henry Kofi, Yao Asare Daku and Ajay Frimpong, are all currently justices of the Court of Appeal. If confirmed, President Akufo-Addo alone would have appointed 18 Supreme Court judges, the biggest number by any president in Ghana's history. Listen to First Deputy Speaker Joe Sewusu reading a letter from President Akufo-Addo seeking parliamentary approval for the nominees.
There are now 13 justices of the court, including the new Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Gertrude Tokunu. In order to fill these vacancies and reach the full complement of the court, I instructed the Attorney General and Minister for Justice of my intention to appoint to the Supreme Court, subject to the satisfactory conclusion of the processes set out in Article 1442 of the Constitution, the following persons. 1. Justice Henry Anthony Kofi, Justice of Appeal. 2. Justice Yao Asaredako, Justice of Appeal. And 3. Justice Richard J. Frimpong, Justice of Appeal. On 27 July 2023, the Judicial Council advised me by letter under the hand of the Council's chairperson, Chief Justice Gertrude Isabasa Kitokonu, of the suitability of my nominations of these persons for appointment to the Supreme Court. Upon receipt of the Judicial Council's advice and in accordance with my duty under Article 1442, I consulted with the Council of State by submitting the names, curricula vitae of the nominees for appointment to the court. The Council of State has, by a letter dated 11th August 2023, notified me of the successful completion of the consultation process. I'm therefore, in accordance with Article 1442 of the Constitution, seeking the approval of Parliament for the appointment of the nominees as Justice of the Supreme Court.
Well, let me bring in Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Sante, who is in Parliament for us. Thank you so much for joining us, Kweku. So let's hear the reaction of the legislature to the executive's latest appointment to the judiciary.
Well, the minority MPs did not immediately speak on the floor to these new appointments. But we know that they have always stated that they are opposed to what they call President Akufo-Addo's packing of the Supreme Court. In fact, the last two judges nominated by the President, two of them got unanimous approval, but two had to go through a vote on the floor of the House before they were eventually approved to go onto the Supreme Court. And so we understand from some sources that we are getting information from that the minority are not so excited about these three names and will seek to actually stop the process from going ahead, which will mean that the President, Akufo-Addo, would have gotten 18 appointments to the Supreme Court. This is not something that the NDC MPs are very comfortable with.
Well, apart from that also, ahead of the budget reading next week, I'm hearing that some minority MPs are pushing for the annual post-budget workshop to be held in Parliament House. What exactly is their concern?
Well, yes, every year after the budget is presented, there's a 3-day post-budget workshop for MPs to facilitate the understanding of the key issues that the finance minister would have brought. This year's is scheduled for 17 to 19 November at the Rock City Hotel in Kwewu. But NDC MP for Boehm, Kofi Adam says, because of the economic challenges the country is currently facing, it will be important for this meeting to be held here in Accra to save money.
And Friday the 17th, we are equally going to be sitting. Mr. Speaker, the business committee should rethink and consider that the savings that we will be making by organizing the workshop here would help to support many things. Yesterday we were talking about renal unit here. We have talked about the disaster that happened in Upper Volta and Lower Volta, and we are seeking to get some water to even support. We can use part of this to get water to support the flood victims. I think the leadership should I'm trying to persuade leadership.
Well, Kweku, what's been the majority's reaction to this? Did they agree?
Well, the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Fenyo-Markin, viewed these comments as just opportunistic and propagandistic, which just seeks to put Parliament in a bad light.
The decision was by the Business Committee, made up of 10 from each side. So this is the decision of the committee. It is not about leaders being insensitive. I would want to encourage members to be mindful of their choice of words and the approach they take on some of these matters. It's very important. Otherwise, then we should say that we should not take salaries at all as members of Parliament, and we use all of that for community service. Such approach is inappropriate. We do so to mislead the public, and we, for the political class, become victims.
That's the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Marking. Now, let's do some politics. And the naming of a running mate for the NPP flag bearer for the 2024 elections is months away. But already there's a lot of jostling and other means by the perceived front-runners to undo each other. Names like the Majority Leader, Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, the Education Minister, Dr. Yawud Seyeduchum, among many names making a strong showing for the role. But a former General Secretary of the NPP who saw it through the period of Albert Dubois, John Kufuor and Nana Akufo-Addo is cautioning the hopefuls not to peak ahead of time.
The running mates from history, people should learn from history. Okay? All the running mates that we've had, from Dubois to Kufuor to Nanado, they've never been the obvious choice. That is a fact.
I see.
I'm telling you the truth. That is what has happened. So I don't know why people even want to be the obvious choice. The more obvious you are, the less likely you're going to be.
You're going to be interested.
I mean, so I want to look at the history.
Not a parliamentarian?
Look, it is the prerogative and the sole prerogative of the presidential candidate to select his partner.
What then happened to Haji Halima Mahama?
What are you saying?
We were told that she was the preferred choice of Nanado in the first place.
You were told by
yes, I mean,
these are all.
You don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
I
was part of the National Council.
Yes.
I was there that day in that meeting.
Was she not presented?
No.
Really?
Candidate Akufo-Addo? Never. He presented Dr. Baumia. I was surprised because I knew Dr. Baumia because I was press secretary to Kufuor and he worked closely with Dr. Akwa.
Well, that's Kwabneji Ejepong there interacting with my colleague Raymond Akwa on Upfront. Well, Director of Research at the Presidency, Dr. Isaac Owusu-Mensah, wants NPP presidential candidate Dr. Baumia to look beyond the Ashanti region selection of the running mate.
NPP is doing as much as possible to, if you want, I won't use the word ostracize, but to move away from the Akan tag. Baumia is from the north. We can also look at one of the smaller groups. We can have smaller ethnic groups who in the past have not really benefited from it. For instance, we have always have our national chairman from Greater Accra here for a number of times. We can decide to have a running mate from Greater Accra who can also bring some votes.
What will be the competitive advantage in doing so?
That's what I'm coming. When you mention Greater Accra, you don't just mention Greater Accra because anybody from Greater Accra. But whether we like it or not, Greater Accra is the biggest region in Ghana in terms of voter population. Yeah.
That's the Director of Research at the Presidency, Dr. Isaac Owusu-Mensah. They're taking us on a quick break here on the Midday News, live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, in Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM. We're on affiliate across Ghana's 16 regions. The Midday News is brought to you by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol is always a delightful experience. Also brought to you by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. We've been looking at that mass cheating and the investigations underway by WAEC following that BC that was organized in 2023. When we return, we have sports and one person arrested in connection with illegal felling of a 300-year-old historic tree planted by the late Komfo Anokye, and later a prenuptial agreement signed under conditions not favorable to either party will be inadmissible in court in case of a divorce.
Because in one case, the gentleman said that, yes, I signed the agreement giving out this property to my wife. Under duress, in the night, in the midnight, such agreements may suffer a declaration of invalidity.
When budgets are tight and money difficult to come by, you want to be sure you get the best value for your money. These are not times to be spending money fixing expensive engine problems because of cheap fuel and lubricants. Drive to a Petrosol station today and buy your quality fuel and lubricants, and rest assured of fuel that lasts long and lubricants that prevent expensive engine problems. Hear the sound. Petrosol, clean fuel in full quantity.
Imagine say water wake up at dawn. You know both. You know chop. Where it vanish for your area for 2 weeks. You not get one drop safe inside your tank.
Hey.
Haja, our life was in dangerous. Only our neighbor get water with water tank.
Water tank?
Yes, water tank. Mamma mia, that water tank get meter for checking water level. That water tank be fine past Kumasi Selenium. That water tank be tough like Ghana Army. That water tank, they carry water pepe, so say some no go left inside the supply tank. What a tank! As my boss, Mr. Poncho, go talk.
Beautiful, durable, with water level indicator and accurate volume of water. Water tank. What a tank! By Duraplast.
Thanks for choosing us. Let's do sports.
Yeah, Emefa, troubling news for the Black Stars because Deputy Captain Thomas Partey is at risk of missing next year's Africa Cup of Nations after being ruled out for the rest of the year. The midfielder underwent a thigh procedure and is expected to be sidelined until February 2024. Now, the AFCON begins on the 13th of January. Last night was not good for Ampem Dakwan ladies who lost 3-0 to AS Monday in the CAF Women's Champions League. But all hope is not lost as a win against Hurricanes on Sunday will see them progress to the last four of the tournament. Back to you, Emefa.
Thank you very much, Mubarak. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, is pleading with the public not to judge his men with past perceptions about the service. According to him, his administration has been able to change the security environment in the country and will not relent in making it better. The plea of the IGP follows concerns by the Association of Oil Marketing Companies about frequent attacks by armed robbers on fuel stations across the country, forcing them to close operations earlier than their usual time. Before we hear from the IGP, let's listen to the chairman of the OMC's Kweku Ajimandia.
Unfortunately, our clock is a little bit different. That we have some 12 hours to work. Depending on this, because of the armed robbery, the fear of that, we are not able to operate 24 hours. Ideally, time was when I was a schoolboy. We used to have 24 hours filling station service. Now it's scattered. Some of the stations 5 p.m. we are closed, and sometimes 6 p.m. In some places it's 9, in others 10. So it's staggered around, and sometimes it's at the mercy of our customers. And some people even need fuel to send people to hospital. They can't even get fuel because we have closed.
Well, the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, assures the business community of a revised strategy to deal with these criminal activities in the country.
We are aware that in the past, your environment used to experience a lot of security challenges. Working in concert with my colleagues and commanders across the country and police officers at every corner of the country, including the initiative that we came up where police officers were virtually on daily basis throughout the day visiting all your stations across the country, engaging your officers as they work. We've been able to stem the tide to an appreciable extent, but we still think that there are a lot more to be done.
Now, the search for who fell that 300-year-old historic tree planted by the late Comfort Noche is on, and this afternoon Joy News is learning that one person has been picked up. Let me join my colleague Emmanuel Brightquick, who has been following the story for us and joins us on the line. Emmanuel, give us the very latest on this.
All right, so Emefa, indeed, our sources tell us that one person has been picked by the police to assist with investigation pertaining this particular incident that happened on Tuesday morning. And then when you go to the Feyase area where the tree is located, and they have mounted a barricade around this tree, and I'm informed it's to prevent further intrusion by the public as the local traditional council prepares to perform rites over the unfortunate incident. And also, they tell me some residents over there are alleging that a pastor is being involved in the cutting down of the tree. They claim that the man of God contracted some men to cut down the tree. According to the residents, they say the religious leader did so because he regarded the tree as fetish, and also did not understand why the reconstruction of the Afonso Lake Busumchi Road did not affect the tree, but was diverted to keep the tree. So, Emefa, this is the latest on this particular development. The stump is still there. The tree is also lying. The one that has been cut is also lying there. So they are just preventing the public from intruding so that anything else cannot happen to the tree until anything or rites are being performed over this particular tree.
And these rites, is it for the tree to come back to life or what exactly?
Well, we cannot tell whether to make it come back to life or leave it as it is. But they just want to perform some rites and then pacify the gods regarding this particular unfortunate incident that has happened. And because they believe that because the tree has been cut down, it might have some bad it might spill some doom on the people of Feyasi and even the Asante Kingdom as a whole. So this is why they are actually performing this right.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel Bright Kweku, bringing us updates on that 300-year-old historic tree that was felled this week, I should say. Now, a prenuptial agreement, an agreement made between two people before marriage that establishes rights to property and support in the event of divorce when made under duress or conditions favorable to one of the parties, will be rendered invalid and inadmissible in court. That is according to the director of the Ghana School of Law, lawyer Yao Pong. Speaking on the Super Morning Show this morning, he advised couples to consider where such agreements are signed to ensure their viability.
The other spouse is able to lead evidence to the fact that these properties were acquired jointly as explained in the cases during marriage. Then the court will the court's jurisdiction to trace these properties will be invoked and they will be able to track. And this whole provision we are talking about is under the human rights chapter of the Constitution. So it is the right, in fact the human right of a spouse to lay claim to these things, except that I said that I have my own views anyway. Now, so the court can trace both from the origin and the final destination of these properties. And I hold the view that he wouldn't have had his way in Ghana if there was evidence that he actually acquired this money. And the first point is the presumption that you should be a rich man or you should be earning so much. Because as a footballer, we all know that reasonably you gain, maybe you earn not less than, let's say.
But interestingly also, if you acquire property and one spouse acquires a property and signs it or puts it in someone else's name, we are told that it would be admitted as being held in trust for the couple. That's how we end today's edition of the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. We have Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabel to avoid divorces. I am Emefa Apawu.